"I'm not your property," Karen said, her voice cold as she looked at me. It wasn't a joke. She wasn't playing around. That one sentence hit me harder than any physical blow could. I had spent years building a life with her, supporting her ambitions, her dreams, doing everything to make our family work. And yet, in that moment, I realized I was nothing more than an afterthought to her. The silence that followed was deafening. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, trying to process the sting of her words. But something in me shifted. Something inside snapped. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to defend myself. I didn't need to explain myself. "Perfect," I finally replied, my voice steady. "Then don't come home." She froze. Her face, for the first time, betrayed a flicker of doubt. I turned and walked out of the room, my heart pounding in my chest, not with anger, but with something else, something far more powerful. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to plead. I was done. I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. I just left. And as I packed my things in silence, I felt the weight of everything we had built together. I had been so sure of our life, so sure of her. But now, I was stepping away, stepping into something unknown but necessary. By morning, my phone was flooded with texts and calls from her, begging me to come back, but I wasn't going to answer. Not this time. I was leaving for good, not to escape her, but to find myself again. She had no idea what was coming next. The plan had already been set in motion, and it didn't involve her. The next morning, I woke up to the silence of a house that no longer felt like home. My phone buzzed incessantly with Karen's texts, but I didn't even look at them. I had made up my mind. I was done trying to fix something that wasn't broken, something that I wasn't a part of anymore. The truth was, I had been drifting for months, watching her slowly pull away from me, even before the words were spoken. The woman I married wasn't the same woman standing in front of me yesterday. She was someone else entirely, and I had to admit to myself that I hadn't noticed the cracks until they were wide enough to swallow me whole. I spent the day in silence, packing what little I needed, moving through the house like a ghost, like someone preparing to leave. I wasn't sure where I was going yet, but it didn't matter. I had nothing left to lose. I thought about the years we had spent together, the small moments that had once felt so full of promise. The weekend getaways, the quiet dinners, the laughter. All of it seemed so far away now, like it had been someone else's life. I had given everything to her, and in return, I had gotten nothing but indifference. The idea of going back to that life seemed suffocating. It wasn't just her words yesterday. It was everything leading up to them. I had been invisible for so long, and now I was ready to disappear completely. I could feel the weight of her absence already, even though she wasn't gone yet. She would be. I could feel it in my bones. I stepped out of the front door for the last time, the cool air hitting my face like a wake-up call. The house behind me, the one I had worked so hard to build, no longer felt like mine. I was a stranger in my own life. The drive to nowhere felt liberating. I didn't have a destination in mind, but I knew that every mile between me and that house would be a step towards something new. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I was done being tied to a past that didn't respect me. It wasn't until I stopped for gas, a few hours later, that the reality fully hit me. I was free. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying anyone else's expectations. The air smelled different. The world felt different. I didn't have to go back. Not now. Not ever. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself living in a small apartment with bare walls and nothing but the sound of my own thoughts. The silence felt strange, but also, there was peace in it. I could breathe again. I spent the days working on myself, the things I had neglected for years. I ran, I read, I started picking up hobbies I had abandoned long ago. But even as I filled the space with new routines, there was something else lingering. It wasn't until I received her call that night that the full weight of my decision hit me. I saw her name flash on my phone, and for a moment, I hesitated. But then I remembered her words. The words that had broken us. "I'm not your property." The words echoed in my head as I answered the phone. "James," Karen's voice was shaky, almost pleading. "I need to talk." I felt a pang of something I couldn't quite place. Was it sympathy, regret, or something else? But I had no room for those feelings anymore. "We have nothing left to talk about," I said, my voice calm but firm. There was a pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, like she was trying to find the words that would fix everything. But I wasn't waiting for her to fix anything. I had already fixed myself. You think I don't care? She asked, almost accusing. No, I think you stopped caring a long time ago, I replied. Her silence was louder than any argument we'd ever had. I could almost hear her processing it. But I wasn't going to be the one to fix this. Not anymore. I'm not asking you to come back, Karen. I'm asking you to respect the decision I made. I'm moving on. The words hung in the air between us, final. I hung up the phone before she could say anything more. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel the weight of her presence hanging over me. I was free, really free. No longer bound by the expectations of a life I didn't want. I looked out of the window at the city lights, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel alone. I was exactly where I needed to be, on my own, strong, and ready for what came next. The past was over. The future, now, was mine. Weeks passed, and I started to feel like I was finally getting my life back together. I had my mornings to myself now. I ran every day, not because I had to, but because it felt good. I woke up to my own pace, not to the sound of Karen's voice calling me to do this or that. The apartment wasn't much, but it was mine. It was my space. It was quiet, but in a way, the quiet was comforting. I spent my evenings reading, catching up on books I had long forgotten. It wasn't the life I expected, but it was the one I needed. But life has a funny way of testing you. It was a Thursday night when I ran into her. Karen. She wasn't supposed to be in town, but there she was, standing outside a coffee shop just a few blocks from where I lived. I almost didn't recognize her at first. She looked different, softer in a way. Her usual sharp edges, the ones I had once known so well, were now blurred. I hesitated, unsure whether I should walk up or just keep going. But before I could make a decision, she turned and saw me. Her eyes locked with mine, and for a moment, there was silence. James, she said, her voice unsure, almost apologetic. I didn't know what to say at first. The anger, the frustration, all of it had melted away. Now, all that was left was the past. Karen, I replied, my tone calm, almost distant. She looked at me, taking in the space between us. I could see the old, familiar guilt in her eyes. I've missed you, she said, her voice quieter now, a hint of sadness in it. I didn't respond right away. I just stood there, watching her, feeling a strange sense of peace wash over me. The person I used to be, hurt, confused, angry, wasn't here anymore. I had let that person go a long time ago. I'm sorry for everything, she added, her words hanging in the air between us. I couldn't help but wonder if she truly meant it, or if this was just another attempt to drag me back into a life that no longer made sense. I looked at her, not with anger, but with a kind of clarity that surprised me. I know, I said simply, but I've moved on. You should too. The words felt final, like a door closing for good. Karen stood there for a moment, taking it in. She didn't say anything else. She just nodded, her expression unreadable, and slowly turned to walk away. I watched her leave, feeling no rush to follow. There was no need to. The old chapters of my life had ended. As she disappeared into the night, I realized that I was exactly where I needed to be, on my own, free, and ready to embrace whatever came next. It had been a few months since I last saw Karen. My life had found a rhythm, and I had settled into a new routine. The apartment felt more like home now, and I was beginning to enjoy my independence. I had learned a lot about myself in those months. There were still moments when I thought about her, about what we had lost, but those moments were fewer and farther between. My job had taken a new turn, and I was thriving in ways I hadn't imagined. I was finally becoming the man I had always wanted to be, the man I had forgotten about while trying to please everyone else. One evening, after a long day at work, I decided to stop by the local bar for a drink. I didn't usually go out much, but tonight felt different. Maybe it was the need to feel something, or maybe I just needed a change of scenery. The bar was quiet, a few people scattered at the tables, and the hum of low conversations filled the air. I grabbed a seat at the bar, ordered a drink, and took a deep breath, letting the weight of the day drift away. As I took a sip, I felt the familiar weight of someone's gaze on me. I turned my head slightly, and there she was. Karen. Her eyes met mine, and for a second, time seemed to stand still. I wasn't sure what to feel. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just indifferent. She walked over, her steps slow, deliberate. She looked different, softer, like she had aged in ways I hadn't expected. James, she said softly, her voice hesitant, almost shy. I didn't think I'd ever see you again. I looked at her for a moment, considering my words carefully. I'm surprised you're here, I said, my tone neutral but calm. I thought you'd moved on. She nodded, but there was something in her eyes, a mix of regret and something else, perhaps longing. I have, she replied, a faint smile on her lips, but it didn't reach her eyes. I just wanted to see you. To apologize. For everything. I didn't say anything right away. I just studied her, trying to read her, trying to understand what she wanted from me now. I didn't know her forgiveness. I didn't know her anything. Karen, it's over, I said finally, my voice steady. What happened, happened. And I've moved on. I'm not angry anymore, but I can't go back. Her face fell, and for the first time, I saw the raw vulnerability in her eyes. She wasn't the strong, confident woman I once knew. She was just a person, broken in her own way. I understand, she whispered, taking a step back. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. For all of it. I nodded. I know, I said simply. But I have nothing left to give you. It's time for both of us to move forward. She didn't say anything else. She just stood there for a moment, taking in my words, before she turned and walked away. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't need to. I had let go of the past long ago. And now, standing there, I realized I was truly free. Free from her. Free from the life we built. Free to start again. It had been months since that night in the bar with Karen, and life had continued on without her, without the weight of a past I no longer wanted to carry. I had settled into a new rhythm. I woke up early each morning, not to the chaos of family demands or the stress of a failing relationship, but to the simple pleasure of a quiet house and a fresh day ahead. Work was going well. My career was finally on the rise. The quiet satisfaction of knowing that I had built this life on my own, without depending on anyone else, was something I hadn't realized I craved until now. The world felt different. I felt different. One afternoon, while walking through the park near my apartment, I noticed a small crowd gathered at the edge of the walking path. Curiosity pulled me closer, and as I approached, I saw a woman standing in the center, handing out flyers. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I froze. It was her, the woman who had once been my world. Karen. She looked just as I remembered, yet somehow, she seemed smaller now. The sharp confidence I had once admired was gone. Instead, there was just the woman I had tried to forget. I stood there for a few moments, unsure of what to do. I had no reason to approach her. I had no reason to even speak to her. But something in me, a curiosity I couldn't ignore, pushed me to walk closer. She didn't see me at first. Her attention focused on the people around her. But then, as I stood just a few feet away, she turned. For a moment, her expression flickered with surprise, then quickly shifted to something unreadable. She took a deep breath, as if preparing herself for a conversation that neither of us were ready for. James, she said, her voice quiet but steady. I didn't expect to see you here. I didn't know what to say. The past felt so far away, like it belonged to someone else. I looked at her, searching her face for something familiar, but all I saw was a stranger who had once shared a life with me. It's been a long time, I replied, my voice neutral. What are you doing here? She glanced down at the flyers in her hands, almost as if the question had caught her off guard. I'm volunteering for a local charity, she said, her tone softer now, as if she were trying to justify something, to explain herself. I didn't need an explanation. Not anymore. That's good, I said, and for a moment, there was nothing but the silence between us. The years, the hurt, the distance, all of it hung in the air. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. But I wasn't the man I once was. I hope you're doing well, she said, her voice tentative, as if she wasn't sure how I would respond. I am, I replied, looking her in the eyes for the first time since we had spoken all those months ago. I'm exactly where I need to be. There was a long pause before she nodded slowly, as if accepting the truth of it. She didn't try to say anything more. She didn't ask for anything. She just stood there, the weight of everything unsaid between us. And in that moment, I realized that we were both different people now. The life we had once shared had come to an end, and neither of us could go back to it. With a final look, I turned and walked away. There was no need for more words, no need for explanations. I had already moved on, and she had, too. It had been almost a year since I ran into Karen in the park. The city felt different now. I felt different. I had built a life for myself, something real. I had my own apartment, my own routine, my own peace. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something was still missing. Not her, not the past, but something deeper. Something that had been buried under the years of trying to please others. I wanted to create something of my own, something that belonged to me alone. It wasn't long before the opportunity came. A friend of mine had mentioned an old property on the outskirts of town, an abandoned building that had been sitting empty for years. It had always been a dream of mine to restore something, to take something broken and make it whole again. The moment I saw it, I knew it was the right choice. The building was run down, the walls cracked, the windows boarded up, but I saw potential. I could see what it could be, not just what it was. It reminded me of myself, in a way. Broken, beaten down, but with something left inside. I spent the next few months diving into the project, pouring my energy into it. I hired a small team of workers, most of whom had worked on smaller projects around the city. Together, we brought the building back to life. It wasn't just about the structure, though. It was about me, too. Every nail I hammered, every brushstroke I made, I felt myself coming alive again. I was creating something from nothing, just as I had started to do with my own life. Slowly, piece by piece, I built a new future for myself. The process wasn't easy. There were setbacks, delays, unexpected expenses. But I didn't give up. I couldn't. The more I worked, the more I realized how much I had been holding back. How much I had been afraid to truly live, to truly take control. It was as though the building was teaching me to break free, to embrace my own strength. The grand opening of the building came sooner than I expected. It wasn't just a building anymore. It was a testament to everything I had overcome. As I stood there, looking out over the crowd, I realized how far I had come. I had created something that was mine, something I was proud of. I wasn't the man I used to be, and I wasn't going to let anyone or anything take that away from me. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The past was behind me. I had done it. I had rebuilt my life. And now, I was ready for whatever came next. The months that followed were filled with a new sense of purpose. The building was thriving, and so was I. The once empty walls were now filled with life, with people walking in and out, admiring the work that had been put into it. It was more than just a business. It was proof that I could do something great on my own, without relying on anyone else. The satisfaction I felt every time I walked through the door, seeing what I had created, was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. It wasn't just about the building anymore. It was about the transformation I had undergone. But even with all the success, there were still moments when my mind would drift back to the past. Late at night, when the hustle and bustle of the day faded, I would find myself thinking about Karen. Not out of longing, but out of curiosity. How was she? What was she doing now? I hadn't heard from her in months, and that was fine. I had let go, but there was still a part of me that wondered if she ever thought about me. One evening, while I was at the office, my phone buzzed. I picked it up without thinking, only to find her name on the screen. My heart skipped a beat, but I didn't let myself feel anything more. I took a deep breath before answering. James, Karen's voice came through the phone, sounding different, softer. I know it's been a long time, but I wanted to check in. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure what to say. We hadn't spoken in so long, and part of me was still surprised to hear from her. How are you? She asked. It was such a simple question, but it felt loaded with meaning. I'm good, I replied, my voice calm, steady. I'm doing better than I have in a long time. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I'm glad to hear that, she finally said. I've been thinking about you, James. I just wanted to apologize for everything. I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry. Her words hung in the air, and I could feel the sincerity behind them. I wasn't sure how to respond. Part of me wanted to lash out, to tell her everything I had kept inside for so long. But I didn't. I had moved on. I had built something new for myself, something she couldn't take away. It's in the past, Karen, I said, my voice steady. I've forgiven you, but I'm not the same person I was. I've moved on. There was another long pause, and for a moment, I thought she might say something more. But instead, she simply said, I understand. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I know, I replied softly. Take care of yourself, Karen. And with that, I hung up the phone. It wasn't an ending I had expected, but it was the one I needed. The past was finally closed. I didn't need her to apologize for me to move on. I had already done that. The next chapter of my life was mine to write, and I wasn't going to let anything from the past hold me back. It had been nearly 2 years since Karen's call. My life had become everything I had once dreamed of, successful, peaceful, and most of all, mine. The building was thriving, and with the new space I had created, I was more fulfilled than I had ever been. I had found a rhythm, a balance, in both my work and personal life. My days were spent working on new projects, growing the business, and the evenings were mine to enjoy however I wished. There was no longer any pressure from the past, no ghosts lurking around the corner, pulling me back into a life I had left behind. Yet, every now and then, something would remind me of those years with Karen. Not in a painful way, but in the quiet moments of reflection. I had learned so much through those experiences, about what I was capable of, about the importance of self-respect, and about the power of letting go. The man I was before, the one who had been so afraid of losing his family, was long gone. In his place stood a man who was sure of himself, a man who could face anything without fear. One Saturday afternoon, I found myself at a charity event that I had been invited to by a friend. It was one of those upscale events, where everyone seemed to know each other, and there was a sense of quiet competition in the air. I had never been one for these types of gatherings, but today felt different. I didn't need to impress anyone. I was there for myself. As I walked into the room, I scanned the crowd, casually nodding at a few acquaintances. And then, I saw her. Karen. She stood across the room, talking to someone, but the moment our eyes met, everything else seemed to fade away. There was no anger, no bitterness, just an odd sense of closure. She hadn't noticed me yet, and I debated for a moment whether or not I should approach her. But I realized there was nothing left unsaid between us. We had both moved on, and this was just another moment in time. I didn't need to relive the past, nor did I need to confront her again. So, I walked up to the bar, ordered a drink, and watched the evening unfold. After a while, Karen made her way over to me. She didn't look the same, softer, less certain, but still the woman I once knew. James, she said, her voice hesitant. I didn't expect to see you here. I smiled politely but didn't feel the need to say anything more then. It's been a long time. We stood there for a few moments, exchanging pleasantries, but neither of us brought up the past. I didn't feel the need to apologize, nor did I expect an apology from her. We had both moved on, and that was enough. I'm happy for you, James, she said quietly. You've done well for yourself. Thank you, I replied, my tone light. I've learned a lot along the way. She nodded, as if understanding everything without needing words. And with that, she walked away. I didn't watch her go. I didn't need to. I was finally at peace. The past was just that, the past. And now, I had a future ahead of me. One that was mine to shape, with no one else's expectations weighing me down. Life had taught me that sometimes, the hardest thing you can do is walk away. But once you do, you realize how much lighter you feel. I was free. I was whole. And I was ready for whatever came next.